The Wrestling is Real podcast because wrestling needs us. Brought to you by KingofAmazon.com. Go to KingofAmazon.com when you do your shopping for Amazon to help the King of Podcasts. Shop for Amazon at KingofAmazon.com.
Welcome to episode 540 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. KOP with you. With you here, I was trying to say it real quick, but then I just needed to slow it down. So we just finished WWE Backlash from the Performance Center, which started off very basic, but gave us a Mac classic by the end of the show tonight. That was really good. Listen, it's a B pay-per-view. Straight up B, and the B can stand for basic, and I think they really finished up good towards the end of the night, really, when I just look at it in a nutshell. So we're going to talk about the matches that went on very briefly, and I also want to go and talk a little bit about the latest news that happened in changing up the guard as to who is running right now, everything that's going on with creative backstage. And we know that Paul Heyman has been replaced as executive director for Raw, for Raw, and now Bruce Pritchard is now solely the main booker for Raw and SmackDown. So everything that's being done with creative, Bruce Pritchard is the overseer. So we're back to a wrestling bubble and back to basic booking for mid-carders, which, I mean, really, when you look at how the whole card looked like tonight, I mean, your champions look pretty good, but your mid-card does really look basic. It's basic booking, and I really thought about it like that, but really it is more than anything else. It's basic booking. There's nothing to it, very one-dimensional, a reason for a fight, with nothing much more to add to it. I mean, there's been a couple of things they've added, which is why the Street Profits Viking Raiders non-match, or basically a cinematic skit, worked out well. Based on what they've been doing, the build-up was actually pretty good for that. Otherwise, all the other matches leading up to that, and then the greatest wrestling match ever between Edge and Orton tonight, that's a different story. Because those matches really did turn out. Those are the two matches to watch. That's the two things to watch of the pay-per-view tonight. Out of everything that we had, really those two matches really stood out the most. At least it was in my opinion. So moving along into the matches themselves. Pre-show, Apollo Crews over Andrade. And Andrade is just taking a loss again to Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews stays strong. And, I mean, really, it's a bit of all of a sudden for Apollo Crews to go and get this, because they had not been booking him strong for a long time, and all of a sudden, here he is. It's great because he should be. There's no reason why he shouldn't be at this spot. So I'm glad to go and see him there. And he's doing pretty well for what it's worth. So, pretty simple match, and Apollo Crews with a victory. When you look at the card, there wasn't really a whole lot they're going to work with when it comes to what you could start the pay-per-view with tonight. They decided for the women's tag team titles. I guess, you have a couple teams there's not a whole lot of chemistry between them. And with Bayley and Sasha Banks, they just need to do something with them because they wanted them on the pay-per-view. So you put IIconics and Bliss and Cross in this. It's just to put a match on, And that was, kind of there. You got to get something there for the women on SmackDown, so you did that. It was basically, checking a box, which is why this match was here. Wasn't anything too special, but again, it was basically a match to let Bayley and Sasha Banks shine, and there you got it. Sheamus and Jeff Hardy, I know they've been building that a lot. This match they were building a lot on SmackDown. I've been hesitant to really appreciate what the storyline is. We've seen this before. I don't like Jeff Hardy getting used, but again, why not, right? They're going to use his alcoholism, his alcoholic problems of the past to use it in this story. Okay, I guess that's what they want to do. Fine, well, good. Other than that, the match was okay. Jeff Hardy is kind of slowing down a little bit, and Sheamus, they wanted to just have it where Sheamus is out there and he's kicking ass. Like, you can almost see like Jeff Hardy, through all his injuries and all that he's gone through, it's tough for him to get around now. He's not as agile as he once was. And you can just start telling that, unlike Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy and some of the death-defying moves, the real high-flying he's done, Like, I feel like Matt Hardy hasn't done so much of that. He's kept himself more of a ground game whenever he worked at Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, or AEW. Because that's the one thing that's been done is with Matt Hardy doing the broken gimmick, it's kind of kept him from being a high flyer. He's been able to do something else to his character, thus evolving his character. And unfortunately, because Jeff Hardy's not with Matt and can't do Brother Nero, Jeff Hardy has to still play the greatest hits of his previous time. And that's got to be tough on him, on his body, to keep doing that. Expecting him to come out and do the same kind of matches like we've seen before, we're not getting... WWE is not doing the right thing by Jeff Hardy by having him keep up in the same realm as he's been. That guy's in his 40s now. He cannot keep doing what he's doing before. He's busting his ass, falling apart. He's breaking down a bit. It's time to let him do something else with his character. You have to evolve this character around something else. Look, in WCW, they at least always had to do things where they always had to kind of like reconstruct, characters or doing something with them. I think with Jeff Hardy, you can't have him out there as a singles wrestler. I think you make him tag with somebody else. So it's not the Hardy Boys. Fine. Let it be with somebody else. I think putting him in with somebody else and getting him in a tag team would be a good use for him right now, but not anymore in this realm. For Sheamus, this was a build-up match for him. He wins it. So after all said and done, the urine crap that they did on Friday to lead up to Sheamus winning the match, the heel gets the win. It's the illogical booking, but that's what they wanted. Sheamus was the intended winner, so they went with that. Okay. Asuka, Nia Jax, and Asuka, I was afraid to go and see her coming out here. I mean, the way they booked Nia Jax, the lead up to the match, besides the fact she did the face paint like Asuka, I mean, the story that you had to tell of Kairi Sane, knowing the story of how it really happened to her and the real pain she's going through because Nia Jax is a bit frivolous. She's a bit reckless on what she does. That's bad. So we have that happening, and it's like, well, shit. Is Asuka going to survive this match? Well, I guess it did fine. Double countout is a shitty way to get to a match. I don't think anybody was happy about that. But again, I don't want Asuka to be in title matches. Again, we just need to get Asuka, get through this pay-per-view, get Nia Jax off this main roster and down to developmental. It's just got to get off of there. So don't let her do anything here. Go ahead with the match. You did it. Now get her off the show. Do an angle to get her off of here and move her down to developmental because this is not working. Now, Braun Strowman, Miz and Morrison, again, this is almost like you got to give Strowman something to work with, someone to work with. They don't have anybody. Interesting how Baron Corbin has been used for all this time and was not even near what's going on. Otis, they brought him out just to go ahead and tease he might use the briefcase. We never saw anything else after that. And as for... Baron Corbin's a non-factor. He's been one of the bigger heels on SmackDown. And that's it. Wow. With all the time that you got, I must admit, on Raw and SmackDown, they do a lot of having certain stars that they use so that you're not just seeing everybody fighting over and over and over, and then you see the next match, and then here we go. The matches we have on the pay-per-view are not fresh. We've seen them in some variation go over and over and over. We're not seeing that anymore. I'll give credit. That's one thing that if Paul Heyman did anything from being let go, freshening up the matchups and making it where the pay-per-views didn't become just a glorified another match, a rematch glorified just to be on pay-per-view of these stars that we already saw in a feud with each other, facing each other over and over. They've done a pretty good job of not doing that anymore. So I give them credit there. Anyway, Miz and Morrison here. Quick win. Strowman not having much trouble. And for Miz and Morrison, I don't know what you do with them here. But this is where I think Miz and Morrison would help a lot if you wanted to give them some tag team work and you let them have a feud with, like, say, a Jeff Hardy and somebody else. And put somebody else together. Make a makeshift tag team. They need to do that to give Miz and Morrison something to do. And maybe that other tag team gets to go ahead and take on the New Day, or they get, somebody else to go ahead and take on. Something like that. I don't know. That's where I go with the conversation with this. Now, as for the last matches we had of the night, Okay. Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship, 13 minutes. Drew McIntyre being booked solid is the right move. I like Bobby Lashley's match here. Shitty way to finish it because, Lana being brought into the picture, messing this up. They're not going to let him get the belt right away, and obviously when they're wanting to keep McIntyre strong, and that's the right move with McIntyre. And as for Bobby Lashley, they want to go ahead and tail this off to the new triangle with MVP, Lana, and that. So Lana, they're probably going to do some kind of a breakup right now and break that all up. The whole marriage thing is going to be, that angle needs to be dropped. Something else you do, I don't know what they'll do next, but maybe Bobby Lashley doesn't get to go and take for the title next, but who knows what they're going to have. And also interesting, no Seth Rollins. Again, it's a little change up where you see certain stars that you'd see on Raw or SmackDown, but you didn't see them on this show. So, they are doing a pretty good job, to their credit, of actually having a little bit of variety going on so they can have a pay-per-view. And the thing is, too, that they're doing, the double-branded pay-per-views. So not doing a Raw only, SmackDown only is working for them. And that's fine. So then, it wasn't considered a match, but I'll admit the Viking Raiders Street Profits skit, which went like about 10, 12 minutes. It started off real slow. I was kind of like, eh. And where they were going was like, oh boy, this is kind of whatever. But when it was all said and done, it was quite a twist when you started hearing the cinematic music and these guys fighting each other backstage, and then you really get into it and you start seeing, oh, look, Angela Dawkins runs through, what was it, Eric through a damn window? That looked pretty good. Like, they were doing some real stunts. The stunt stuff was actually really good. The way they did it was actually really nice. But I'll admit, the Viking Profits getting together, the way they put that together, and Akira Tozawa putting together a team of biker ninjas, I liked it. I thought it was funny. And I thought it was good. I thought they did a really good job of how they finished it. The last 5 minutes of that skit were very good. I'll admit that I really did. I was laughing towards the end of it, and I thought, oh, okay, I like where they're doing this. And, this has been a pretty good job of making the Viking Raiders mean something. I think them and Street Profits, we're seeing a little more of their characters. And they could only build on that. So I like what they did right there. That actually was pretty good. So good on them for putting that together. I actually really did enjoy that. That was pretty cool. Now, Randy Orton and Edge, the greatest wrestling match ever. Okay. It wasn't. You're not going to call it that. I don't think anybody will call it that. But I will say it's a match of the year candidate. It's going to be the match. It's going to be one of the best matches we've seen this year. That I felt like so far. I didn't care for using everybody else's moves. So, seeing rock bottoms or pedigrees or whatever else they were doing. Eddie Guerrero's three amigos. I wasn't caring for much for that. But the psychology of the match was very well. The story was very good. I mean, these guys are, they're mat technicians. They know what they're doing in there. And this match was way better than WrestleMania match. Way better than the Last Man Standing, by far. This should have been the WrestleMania match. But, what you're doing right here kind of changed it up. So I didn't mind it here. And Edge gets his win back. And a 44-minute match. 44 minutes, 46 seconds. Wow. I liked it. By the way, the Howard Finkel tribute in the beginning with the MSG microphone was very nice. That was really, really nice to see that. And all the enhancements fit the match. And honestly, I like the fact that we're not getting piped in audio in every match. For them to do this match to make it special, they did make this match special. They really made it special. These guys threw it down. This is about as much of an old school Broadway that you would see in WCW or NWA back in the day. This is about as close to a Ric Flair match, 60-minute Broadway, Dusty Rhodes, 60-minute Broadway, or one of my favorite matches of all time. If I had to pick greatest wrestling match ever, there's a lot of them. But if I had to pick one right off the bat, one of my favorites has always been Ric Flair, Rick Steamboat, Chi-Town Stampede 1990, WCW. I really enjoyed that match. I love that match. Ricky Steamboat winning the title over Ric Flair. Teddy Long having to come in after Tommy Young, that's the referee, the one that got knocked out during the match. Teddy Long comes in, makes the count. Jim Ross was on it. Hell of a match. Great backstory with that story as well. But I will admit that the story of this match, the Tom Phillips did a good job. But I'll tell you, the unsung hero of that match was Samoa Joe. His commentary was spot on. It was so well done. I really love what they did with that. I think that Samoa Joe was it was great commentary throughout the night when he had his matches to call. He did such a great job on telling the story in the Randy Orton Edge match. It's credit to him. It tells you that Samoa Joe stepped up big for this task because he saw what they were going with this match was set up, the way it was put together, the old school referee with Charles Robinson coming out there in the old school uniform, and just how they put everything together. You know, I felt that was the one match where you took away the clapping seal fans. I didn't feel it anymore. I felt like I was being taken away to something that looked like a movie, like a boxing match. They definitely gave us that feel. They accomplished it. And if I had to pick like matches that WWE's been doing this year, I mean, this I say it's okay, but like this. The Boneyard match has been their best match of the year. And then second place would be this match. And then third place would be the John Cena Bray Wyatt Firefly Funhouse match. Just in my opinion. Because I think they're doing really well with the cinematic stuff. This cinematic stuff is really they're getting good at this. And I like it. And the fact that they had time to go and put this together and pre-recorded, you know, they're not overdoing it. The cinematic stuff is not getting overdone. I actually do like what they're doing. And you can tell that, you know, with no Firefly Funhouse, they have time to go and do stuff like this. So giving some opportunities to see people doing some stuff, even on SmackDown, they're not going so far with it, but they are getting a little more involved. And the ratings are helping. So they are being a little more creative. I mean, especially on Fox, they are trying to do a bit more. Raw needs to get their ratings back up and try to get themselves back to a certain spot. But for what it's worth, they did a good job with this. And, I mean, when you look at it all together, I think he had 3 matches that were okay. I mean, Braun Strowman's match, it was quick, it was painless, it was not that long. I think Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley had a pretty good match. I think they booked it really well. They gave it the right amount of time. I did like the Viking Prophets skit. That segment was really well done. And Randy Orton and Edge was a great match tonight. Really well done. I give them credit. They did a really good job putting it together. Very good match. I enjoyed it through and through. And I didn't think it was too long. I know other people felt different, but honestly, they were trying to tell a story. They wanted to make sure these guys were getting blown up. Seeing Edge get hit with the punt at the end, Randy Orton winning and saying, you know, go back to Beth and your daughters. I liked all that. I don't know what they're going to do now. Like, one of the things I know is that they were talking about in this match that Edge got injured after the match. Apparently, he tore his triceps. And let me find out what the story was about that. So, torn triceps would be about 4 months out of action, or up to 8 months if it's more severe. Unclear if he will need surgery. So, there was a scheduled talk that Edge would be scheduled for a SummerSlam match in August, and there would be the rubber match with Randy Orton, but I guess that's not going to happen right now. So, with that said, WWE right now is without 3 stars, and now they don't have Edge. So, again, they're going to have to make stars. And now with Bruce Pritchard, they're going to have to figure out how they're going to make that happen. But again, you know, you just need to find a way to go and elevate those titles and make these title holders bigger. That's what they're going to have to figure out. I don't know what they're going to do with that, but they're going to have to find some things they can do to go and figure that and make that happen. Now, let's talk about the other news that was going on earlier this week that I get to talk about because it happened after I did my regular podcast this week. And that was this. The fact that Paul Heyman was removed in his role in creative. And now, with that said, there you go. I mean, he's no longer part of creative. He's now an on-air character once again. So this is just one of a number of things that happened where creative started getting changed, and I don't know if it's just because of the fact of the quarantine or what. And that's where we are with that. So there's been a lot of talk about what's happened on the issues of Krista Joseph's firing. We're learning more about that, and the issues about Vince McMahon removing Paul Heyman from creative. So let's start off with a few days ago. Start with that more than anything else. So now Bruce Pritchard is going to consolidate the wrestling team, the creative teams, and will now take over for Raw and SmackDown. So Bruce Pritchard will oversee both brands. And know your word yet at this point about why it was. Now, Brock Lesnar is expected to come back for SummerSlam build, so we'll see Heyman back on TV. And that was the plan on that. And they even made an announcement on, in a press release to talk about this. Then after that, we started hearing more from sources from WrestlingNews.co. They mentioned that Heyman did not quit, and this was done by Vince McMahon after expressing frustration with the Raw ratings. And that another source was told to WrestlingNews.co that McMahon was more involved with Raw than SmackDown and made it Heyman's job much harder as he had to try to push his ideas while trying to keep Vince happy. So Bruce Pritchard right now on SmackDown is said to be more in line with what Vince wants. There you go. That's why the Jeff Hardy angle was what it was. So what they were doing with Jeff Hardy on SmackDown was more in line with what Vince wants, while Heyman's trying to push to get more younger talent moved up the card, which he tried to do. And over the last several months, he tried to get pushes through Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, and others, only to have McMahon step in and cut him at the knees. So SmackDown ratings have done better than Raw, but there were defenders of Heyman that on creative pointed out that Fox is a bigger platform than USA. You can't create stars overnight, and ratings would eventually have risen after the pandemic, and fans would have gotten accustomed to the younger stars. But also, we know that Vince isn't happy with NXT ratings. So obviously, Vince is trying to go with the guys he knows that he feels comfortable with. Because when you look at the veterans that they had on this pay-per-view tonight, Sheamus, Jeff Hardy, Miz and Morrison, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, Orton and Edge. You're talking about all these guys with more than a decade of experience being first and foremost up front when it comes to all of this. But that's also because some of the more prime stars are not there, and that's what they're going with. Now, moving along to that story, you also have people like Eric Bischoff that we're talking about. He talked about on his After 83 Weeks program. Eric mentions that my first reaction about Heyman's position being taken is that I'm going to send Bruce Pritchard a text that says congratulations with a question mark. And about Heyman, Eric Bischoff would say that he's quirky as shit. He's got his own thing, mostly really creative, highly aggressive people do. Paul was a handful, but in a fun and positive way for me, not in a negative or challenging way, but in a way that kind of made you better because he made you think. And there's that. Now, obviously, people are talking about with Paul Heyman how they're feeling, the fans are always behind him because, again, there's the capital, really the reputation that precedes Paul Heyman because of his ECW work. But that is, to all due respect, that is 20 years ago. Just saying. Now, the other person that got let go, where Bruce Pritchard now, everything is now Bruce Pritchard's byproduct with Vince's nod and blessing. That's where we are. Everything now in WWE is Bruce Pritchard's byproduct with the blessing of Vince. I might even tag the next show like that, depending on what happens with the aftermath of Backlash. So with this said, the Joseph was let go. Krista Joseph, who was a former WWE creative team member, who was there before, then left for Lucha Underground, and then came back, was also with them in WWE for a short time. So Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, reported that DeJoseph said things he shouldn't have said at a Zoom conference call with Stan Stansky, Senior Vice President of Creative Services, and Kevin Moore, Senior Vice President of E-commerce and Venue Merchandise. It was noted that some versions came off to them in a bad way. It got back to Vince, and Vince made a response about it. So DeJoseph took to his official Twitter account Saturday morning, says, quote, totally dodged a bullet. After 10 years away, wasn't really into giving my life into the unpredictable whims of one person, but I believe in Bruce Pritchard and his vision. Life is better than no life. And there's that. Then there was more on the Wrestling Observer radio show that Dave Meltzer had, and he mentioned that when it came to Paul Heyman, he reported that USA Network was unhappy with the change. Very unhappy, by the way. I think they were happy with the ratings, but they understood the ratings. They were told a long time ago there was a rebuilding period. It was going to take time. They understood that. Ratings were a lot higher. And then the pandemic came, and that's what really knocked it down the last 3 months. Same with SmackDown. I cannot imagine Fox, quote, being thrilled the ratings either, considering what they were expecting, end quote. And that's the story about that. So a lot has happened since. It sucks to see all this come across, but there's not much that can be said. After everything was all said and done, it did kind of suck to see them making all these changes. After all this chaos, pay-per-view came out good tonight. They could move forward. Let's see what they do next. But at this point, I think they can work off of Backlash. You know, Stream Rules next month, leading up to SummerSlam. Not a lot of stars to work off of. And so I don't expect any new debuts or anything that's going to be changed in terms of real big pushes that should come up. But let's see what they do. They're going to probably have to reset things right now, what they're going to be able to do. Like, I don't know what matches they could bring back that they're going to try to do more of a continuing a program. If Lashley and MVP will continue a program with McIntyre. Who's the next opponent for Braun Strowman? Who's the next opponent for Asuka? Who knows? And again, we didn't see any Intercontinental title because that was already done on SmackDown, and AJ Styles wins over Daniel Bryan. So you got a few other things to think about that they can build up the SummerSlam. So there's stuff going on. I mean, to stay the course right now, that's probably what they're going to be able to stay doing right now. And that's about as best as you can get. So anyway, we're going to leave it there. Again, check out the website, wrestlingisreal.com. Wrestlingisreal.com. Make sure to go ahead and check out the DDP Yoga link, the banner that's there on the website, because you can go there right now and you can get your hands on a 7-day free trial of his yoga program and check out all the classes, check out all the videos, find out everything that you need to know. Give it a shot. If you like it, you can always cancel anytime. But give it a shot. 7-day free trial at DDP Yoga. You can go click on the banner at wrestlingisreal.com so I get credit for it. And also, don't forget, I hope you'll consider helping out this show and doing what I do best, helping out this show so I can grow it and make it bigger and better than ever, get some advertising out there, get the audience out there, and just do more to make this show even better for you guys. So please consider going to Amazon through my special link, kingofamazon.com. Again, kingofamazon.com. I'd really appreciate that. Anyway, come back for another Wrestling Observer program this Wednesday night, Wrestling Observer podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling Observer podcast, brought to you by kingofamazon.com. For more information on how to subscribe to the show, how to share the Wrestling Observer podcast to listeners like you, and check out the latest wrestling headlines, go to wrestlingisreal.com. That's wrestlingisreal.com.